In this video, we're going to be translating English phrases to algebraic expressions. We're going to go through several examples. It's critical that you know some English words, what they mean algebraically, what they would translate to, and so some common words that we use for add are plus, sum. For subtract, you will see minus, difference, decrease by, less than. Multiply, I am going to use a dot to represent multiplication here since we are doing algebra and typically x is used as a variable. So for multiply, we have times and product. For divide, you see divided by, per, out of, ratio, quotient. I did put an asterisk around beside less than. It's important here because it is a little bit confusing when we do the translation, and I do have an example later in the video for less than. When you see less than, you are going to reverse the order it is written, and I will explain that more in detail as we go through our examples. So here, example 1, I have the English phrase 30 plus a number. And so the first step is I want to underline all the important pieces of the phrase. And so I've underlined 3 pieces here, 30 plus number. And so now I'm ready to translate that into the algebraic expression. And so 30 is just going to be 30 plus, looking back at our chart, plus represented addition. So that's going to be plus. And then the number piece of it for all of the examples that I'm going to be doing during the video is I'm going to use my variable x to represent any unknown numbers. And so that's just going to be x. So 30 plus a number translates to be the algebraic expression 30 plus x. So let's look at example 2, the difference of a number and 10. So the first part of translating is I'm going to underline the important pieces. And then I'm going to translate each of the pieces. So difference is subtraction, and number, I'm going to use my variable x, and then 10 just becomes 10. And so here, I'm going to be subtracting x and 10. So the subtraction is just going to go in between the variable x and 10. So that's would be the translation. Example 3, 11 less than 5 times a number. So here I'm going to underline all of the important pieces, and then I'm going to do the translation for each piece. And in this example, I do have that less than. That was that special situation that I talked about earlier in the video. And so here is that example. And so 11 is just going to translate to 11. Less than represented subtraction. 5 is just going to be 5. Times represents multiplication, so I'm going to put a dot, and then number is just going to be x. And so here, when you have less than, you're going to reverse the order that it is written. And so the 5 times x is really 5x. And so this phrase, 11 less than 5 times a number, is going to translate to be 5x minus 11. So that's where that reversing the order that it's written comes into play. Example 4, 5 times a number minus 3. So I'm going to underline the important pieces and then translate each piece. So 5 is just going to become 5. Times is multiplication, which is represented by a dot. Number is going to be x. Minus is subtraction. And 3 is just going to be 3. And so my 5 times x, that piece of it, is going to become 5x, and then you're going to subtract 3. And so 5 times a number minus 3 translates to be 5x minus 3. Okay, let's look at example 5, 22 plus the quotient of a number and 10. And so I'm going to translate each important piece. And so 22 is just 22, plus represents addition, quotient represents division, number is going to be x, and then 10 is just going to be 10. Now this one's a little bit different because I have that plus and quotient next to each other, and so you want to look at the rest of the phrase all together. It says quotient of a number and 10. So here I'm going to represent division by a fraction bar. And so it's going to look like this. So I'm going to put 22 and then plus, and then I'm going to have x over 10 in my fraction. That x over 10 represents the quotient. It represents division of a number and 10. So that's what that would translate to be. Example 6, the difference of 33 and 3 times a number. So translating each important part, difference represents subtraction. 33 is 33, 3 is 3. Times represents multiplication, so I'm going to put a dot. Number is x. And so here you want to look at 3 times a number. That's just going to be 3x. And so difference means subtraction, so you're going to subtract, and you're going to keep the order here the same as it's written, so it's just going to translate to be 33 minus 3x. All right, our last example, example 7, the product of a number and 15 decreased by 6 times the number. So I'm going to translate each important part, and so product represents multiplication, number is going to be x, 15 is just going to be 15, decrease represents subtraction, 6 is just going to be 6, times represents multiplication, and then number is going to still be x. And so here, when I'm talking about the product, I'm multiplying 15 and x, that's going to be 15x. And then same thing with the 6 times the number is going to be 6x as well. And since it is decreased, you're going to keep the order the same as it's written. So it will translate to be 15x minus 6x. I'm not going to simplify here, even though I do have like terms, because I am just translating the English phrase into the algebraic expression.